Hey guys, it is MissSimReno. If you are returning to the channel, welcome back. And if you're brand new, I am very excited that you decided to join me here today for another video in Create-A-Sim. So I recently did a video on how I create my Sims because I was getting a ton of questions and inquiries about doing kind of a behind the scenes thing in Create-A-Sim to show you all how I do create my Sims, especially for all of like my LPs, legacy challenges, all that fun stuff, because I do use custom content. However, I personally try to keep it fairly minimal, especially if my intent is to upload Sims to the gallery. And last time I did this kind of video, I did create a male identifying Sim. So I wanted to create a female identifying Sim this time and show you some of the other items that I use by default on those Sims, because there are skin details and other kind of like body details that I use depending on the Sim that I'm creating. So I figured, why not? I'll show you what I use on my female identifying Sims as well, and hopefully it'll be just as fun and informative. If you haven't seen my first video on how I create my Sims, I'll give you a very expedited, brief overview of how I get started. So the very first thing that I do is I actually strip my Sim back to basically nothing but their birthday suit. Because even if I go in to create a Sim with an idea for the Sim that I want to create, I like to start with a very blank slate. So I will even go as far as to getting rid of body hair, any tattoos, of course, any accessories, anything like that has got to go. Next, I'll start looking at body presets. Again, I do use the More Cass presets by Zerbu, so I have a ton of different body presets, as well as eye, nose, mouth, ears, jaw, just everything. Tons of different options, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I think that this Sim is already exactly the way that I was envisioning making a Sim today. I'm not even kidding. This is a great slate here. I just love. Look, okay, as I mentioned last time, all bodies are beautiful, but thick thighs also save lives. So I think she's stunning. We're absolutely gonna work with this base right here. The next thing I'll do is I will go and start working on the face itself. I won't spend too much time going through all of these presets. Again, they are generated from that mod that I have. However, I will note that one of the things that I do for almost every Sim is I do pull their face out a bit. And this just helps a lot of the in-game animations look a lot more seamless, such as kissing animations. If you don't do this, sometimes you'll notice that the Sim's lips don't even touch. So I always do this, and checking out the side profile is never a bad idea when you're working with the facial structure as well. I've toyed around with the facial structure a little tiny bit, so I did choose just a different nose preset. I didn't really make any changes, though now that I look at it, I might bring it out just a bit from the side profile. Maybe bring it in a little bit, actually. It's very difficult sometimes to decide exactly how your Sim is going to look. I might just, no, actually, I think that the angle of the mouth, so one thing that I often do when I'm specifically creating female Sims, and I don't know why I do this really only for my female Sims, but depending on the mouth preset as well, I'll bring the corners down. Some of the mouth presets have your Sims constantly smiling, which I'm not against, but usually a more neutral kind of starting point for the mouth is what I'm striving for, so I usually bring the corners down a bit. Now this Sim, I want her to have a little bit more of a chin there. I think that'll work. I think that's perfect. I didn't really touch the eyes aside from choosing that preset, but I might make them a bit smaller, and what I tend to do, at least nowadays, is I bring the eyes pretty close together, and you can tell, I said this in my last video too, when you start bringing the eyes apart and bringing them close together, it drastically changes the look of your Sim. I tend to do this. I tend to bring the eyes pretty close together, and I actually didn't even change the eyebrow shape. I just changed it to the color black because that's actually the color hair that I'm going to be putting on the Sim as well. But as we continue on, I'm just getting rid of any face details, so I just kind of X'd out of that so I can put on my defaults. I showed in my last video that I use this pufferfish skin blend by Miss Ruby Bird on pretty much every single Sim that I make. So I'm going to be using that today as well, though sometimes what I will do, because I have noticed this for my Sims with darker skin tones, I also use this skin overlay or skin detail. It's called Mercuria. I will have to put the creator on screen because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I love this overlay specifically on my darker skinned Sims because, well, number one, we've got some great details as well, like wrinkles and crow's feet, if that's kind of what you're looking for in your Sim, trying to make them look a bit older. But I feel as though the shadows and the detail is much more highlighted with this skin blend, sometimes on darker skin tones. So that's always a contender for me. I don't think I'm going to be using it today. I think I'm going to continue using this by default. And I just realized you can actually layer those because both of them are on. Oh, how interesting. So you can actually layer those. So that's kind of fun. I wasn't aware of that until right now. And then I also put on some mouth corners by Miko as well. There are some different swatches that you can go through depending on what kind of mouth corner you want to add. Even though I typically use the default, I've started to go towards this fourth swatch as well. I just like the shadow of that little like mouth corner dimple that it adds. I think it's a nice little detail to add. And then last but not least, I will add Spotlight version 2 by SimAndy to pretty much every Sim. And now I've said this before, if your Sim doesn't have longer hair, sometimes it can look a little bit off because the shadow is only going to be reaching so far on that side of the Sim's neck, and it does wrap around kind of the jawline here. It's great for photos, but what's wonderful about this is that you can change kind of the severity of it. So I have noticed that for my darker skinned Sims, using the absolute lightest detail still makes a significant difference without it looking too harsh, because this could still work, but in game when you're actually playing in live mode, it might look a bit harsh. And this right here, it looks great for photos and create a Sim, but you can see here that this is what it's going to look like when you're in live mode. It can be a little much, so I'm just going to put it on the lightest shade that I have here. And last but certainly not least, we're going to put on the Chroma Eyes face paint overlay by Golly Haha as well for the eyes. Now see here, I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll take it off for a second. So I'm going to be leaving the Sim's eyes as a very dark brown. So I could go for this. And look, it adds like little spots where you're like catching light in the iris. It adds a lot of color for some of the other eye colors, a lot of depth. Look at the green one and kind of these right here. I think they look more realistic, and even though I don't like hyper realistic looking things personally in my game, I think this is a nice detail. It just brings a little bit more life, I think, to the eyes as well. So those are pretty much the defaults that I put on every single Sim no matter what. And now we're going to be looking at some of the specific ones for my female identifying Sims. And we're also going to look at a couple of custom content hairs that I have, because my collection of tagged feminine hairs in the game is alarming. So one of the things that I love to put on my female identifying Sims here, right? I want my Sims to show off their girls, okay? I just do. And right now, the way that the body is by default, it doesn't really bring a lot of shadow and detail to the Sim's cleavage. So I have, if I can click off of it, let's not put that tattoo on right now, but I have this cleavage overlay set by Praline. It is wonderful. There's tons of swatches, as you can see, for different like breast shapes, how close they are together, all that fun stuff. I typically go for this one, kind of in this category. Like I like that one, and it just kind of emphasizes the shape of the cleavage and of the breast and really kind of shows it off a bit more. I personally really love this detail. So I added to almost every single Sim that has breasts in this game. I just do. I love that detail so much. I have a few others. I don't know the creators off the top of my head, but this is the one that I personally prefer as well. And then I don't do this all the time, but these are great little details to add as well. I will put the creator and the name on screen because I don't know off the top of my head, but I have two belly overlays, which I think is really fun. And these are under the tattoo category, if I didn't emphasize that. So they're not conflicting with, you know, skin details and stuff like that, because you have to think of how certain items are tagged in game and if you can only have one of them or not. Do you know what I mean? So we could only have one leg tattoo, for an example, like one right leg tattoo or one left leg tattoo or whatever the case is. So I will sometimes choose a different belly overlay. So we have some that are a little bit softer, which I personally really like. We have some with a bit more shadow around that little belly button, some that are a bit more toned, and my sim keeps turning because it's technically categorized as an ankle tattoo. So it keeps trying to show off the left ankle here, which is not what we want, but that's okay. And we keep flipping through them. There's just different kind of like muscle tones and things like that. Different details to the belly button as well. And this one here is just slightly different. I personally go for this one more often than not. And I like this one because there's a lot of detail in that belly button. I mean, if you don't care about this stuff, that's totally fine. But when my Sims are in like their swimwear and stuff, or if they're wearing a crop top, sometimes I want them to show off that belly, you know? I do, and I love having this belly overlay because it makes things very different. Now, this one's very toned. My Sim's actual muscle tone is fairly low, so this might be a bit contradictive, but you can see it adds a lot of detail, a lot of shadowing, and if that's something that you like on your Sims and in your game, this could be wonderful for you. But I'm just going to go ahead and put this one on for right now. And now it is time to look at my, I considered a rather extensive collection of CC hairs. If there's one thing that I really need, I feel like I need in my game, it's custom content hairs, as well as facial hairs for my Sims that have facial hair. I love all of the CC hairs that I have in my game. I've used all of them at least once. There are some in here that I've had for so long I don't even know the creators anymore, and that is difficult when the creator name is not on the thumbnail for me personally, just because my collection is big. I'm not very organized, so it's a pretty big collection, and I did not do a great job of organizing that collection as I built it up. But I do want to highlight some of my favorite creators as well. A lot of the hairs that I have in my game are by Okri, Oiko. I could be saying all of these names wrong, so just forgive me. Because I am not great at pronunciation. I have a few from Twisted Cat as well as Clumsy Alien, but Sim Celebrity 00, I have so many hairs by them. I love them. There's a huge collection of hairs by this creator, and they're all wonderful. They're all, I would say a lot of them can be very slight alterations to perhaps games hairs that we have in game already, but they're fantastic. There's so many different variations as well. So I love Sim Celebrity 00. All of these are by that creator. Also, A. Harris O. Brittany, and I wanted to highlight this creator as well, who created all of these in game. Almost every single hair that I have that is either braids, twists, like box braids, dreads, anything like that, are either by Quirky Introvert or Shea Butter. These creators are absolutely incredible when it comes to, I would say, more so textured and black hairs. I love them. Please forgive me if I'm kind of miscategorizing things too, but I needed more diverse hairs in my game, especially for my Sims that had black hair. I did. I needed it. We have some great additions to base game and some other additions in some packs, but for the purposes of this video, just like my last one, I'm going to be making a base game Sim with a couple of custom content details. So my default skin details are going to be there, and we will likely be using a custom content hair as well, but just like last time, I will be linking everything down below so you all can download it if you so choose. However, if you are on console, I apologize because the things that are not going to be there are the skin details and the hair most likely. However, as I said previously, a lot of the skin details I add don't make a significant difference to the Sim. I strive, if my Sim's going to be uploaded to the gallery, to ensure that if you cannot download CC, they will look as much like themselves as possible without those skin details specifically. But for this one, I might have some fun with some of the hairs that I have because they're beautiful. I also want to mention Dogsill. As you can see, I have tons of hairs by that creator, as well as Sims Trouble. I use their stuff all the time. And then I have some other miscellaneous hairs as well that I may not use that often. Again, some of them don't have the creator name on the thumbnail, so I can't rattle off all the names off the top of my head, but I've got a nice collection. So let's go ahead and pick a hair for the Sim. I've been dying to use this hair since I downloaded it only last week. This is the, I believe it's pronounced Jalea hair by Dogsill. I love it. If I mispronounce that, again, I apologize, but I think it is beautiful. I love all the detail, and look at kind of how it raises in the back too. It's just stunning, and I think it really fits the sim well. The other thing that I will do, I know we were in the face paint category for the eye overlay here, but I do have some custom content makeup that I will typically put on my feminine sims as well. So one of my go-tos is the Lip Melt by Urban. I love it. I've also created some of my own custom swatches, if you will. Again, you can do that by, let's say, choosing, let's say, this default swatch, and if you were to change the opacity or the hue or the brightness or whatever, you can just go ahead and click that little plus sign and it will end up saving it as your own little quote-unquote custom swatch, which is beautiful. However, I'm gonna try this Madison lipstick by Cryptic Sim. It's something I just downloaded. I'm gonna make sure that I can track it down for the purposes of this video, but I have been using like kind of a darker color like this and then just changing the opacity to add a little bit of that deep color. I love it. I love it. I love it so much. I think it's beautiful and I think it fits her beautifully. We also have some eyelashes that are just default with base game, as well as some from Lovestruck, which I didn't even realize that this one was from Lovestruck. I thought they were all base game, but they're not. So we're gonna go ahead and just add the base game eyelashes there, just the top lashes. I personally don't like the bottom lashes because it looks like you've added eyeliner around the whole eye. It's not my favorite thing in the world. So I just like doing the top lash. I do. I like the top lash. I know you can do them in brown as well, but I think we're going to go with black. It matches her hair very, very nicely. And I usually won't go too heavy with makeup on my sims, and I think that comes from me not wearing a lot of heavy makeup, but it can really depend. Sometimes for formal outfits, for example, or party attire, I'll go a little bit heavier on the makeup because that's usually when we doll ourselves up, right? But those are kind of the basics that I'll put on, is either this Madison lipstick or the Lip Melt by Urban for a lip color, and then I will use the EA lashes. I used to have the lashes by, I believe, Kiko, but I haven't gotten the updated version yet, and I actually haven't used them that much or haven't felt the inclination to do so, so I don't really use them that often in my game anymore. I'll toss out a bit of an honorable mention. I did go into my piercings category really quick, but from where we left off with the makeup, and I noticed that I did have some eyelashes by Twisted Cat. They're eyelashes number 2. I'm gonna see if I can dig those up. They may require an update. I can kind of tell by the way that they're seated on the upper lid here, but you know, from afar, they still look really nice. So I personally wouldn't even care about getting the update because I think they look really nice. I'll test it very quickly with getting rid of these eyelashes. No, I actually still think they work nice. I think this eye preset by default has this lash, which can be a bit obnoxious. I believe there may be a mod or something like that that gets rid of all EA eyelashes, but it's not something that I have in my game at the moment, so I can't really show that off in any capacity. But if you are looking for some other eyelashes, perhaps those are a good alternative as well. If you want kind of some variety, you could get like the Miko ones. The lashes part 5 is what I typically use. Now I also have them in a skin detail, so I can put them as a piercing or a skin detail, which is great so I don't like overlap things and I can stack a bunch of different details in different categories. But yeah, the Twisted Cat eyelashes number 2 is also a great option. I may not completely clothe this sim in this video, but I did want to just say this sweater, it's the, oh, I forget the name of the sweater itself, but it's by Clumsy Alien. This would work so beautifully on this sim. Like, I would love to put her in this swatch, but we are going to try to make a base game, quote unquote base game only sim at the moment. So I hope that this was helpful and informative. I don't think it'll be as long as the other video was, as I was kind of walking through things. Again, I was a bit expedited, a bit quick with some of the defaults that I put on my sims because I did mention them all and go over them in great detail in the last video. But I hope you all enjoyed this one as well. If I did miss anything down in the comment section, like the CC that I linked and everything, just politely let me know and I will do my best to dig it up for you and make sure I can provide it. But I hope you all enjoyed this. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, and this sim will be on the gallery for you very soon if you'd like to download her. And I will catch you next time I post a video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.